There are no simple solutions to complex issues like the challenges facing equity-deserving groups in Canada. For example, women and non-binary individuals, Indigenous peoples, Black people, and other racialized groups, persons with disabilities, and two-spirited and LGBTQ+ people all face deeply rooted, systemic barriers that have daily impacts on their lives. And these need to be addressed by multi-layered and intersectional approaches that take into account the diverse experiences of equity-deserving groups. At the Diversity Institute, we use a critical ecological model of change to better understand and attempt to dismantle these discriminatory barriers. This model considers actors and factors in the societal, macro, organizational, meso, and individual, micro levels. Government policy and media narratives at the societal or macro level can greatly advance the work of creating more equitable, diverse, and inclusive spaces for equity-deserving groups. Government policy and programs can protect members of equity-deserving groups from bias and discrimination, and can enable or limit equitable access to opportunity. At the same time, the stories that the media tells shape cultural stereotypes and influence our beliefs. When you hear the words entrepreneur or leader, who do you think of? Do you think of a woman or a man? Stereotypes that falsely tie entrepreneurship and leadership to white men can minimize the contributions of others that don't fit that mold. It's important to remember that these stereotypes also shape the aspirations and the confidence of equity-deserving groups, because if you can see it, you can be it. The practices and policies of private and public institutions at the organizational or meso level impact the employment experiences of diverse groups. This includes governance structures, leadership and recruitment strategies, and company culture and norms. Much of these written and unwritten organizational rules are set by leaders at the executive and director level and are put into play by managers and employees. Yet, leadership positions in Canada are not representative of the wider population. For our Diversity Leads research, we surveyed nearly 10,000 board positions across 5 sectors and 8 cities in Canada. We found that women are underrepresented, while racialized people are significantly underrepresented, especially in the corporate sector. In Calgary, women occupy just 33.7% of board seats, while making up half the population. In Vancouver, where nearly half the population is racialized, only 12.3% of board positions were occupied by racialized people. Recruitment practices can also determine which doors open for some and which are closed for others. One study found that job candidates with foreign-sounding names are significantly less likely to be invited to interview for open positions, compared to those with Anglo-Canadian-sounding names, despite each having the same Canadian education and experience levels. Samir was invited to interview 30% less often than the candidate named Matthew. For Asian-named applicants with foreign qualifications, the selection rate was 45 to 60% lower compared to Anglo-named applicants. This study highlights 2 concepts that are necessary to understand at the individual, micro level of the ecological model of change: bias and privilege. Bias is a preconceived and unreasoned opinion, feeling, or belief about a particular person or group. We often pick up our biases as children and may not always be aware of them or how they affect our behavior. Biased opinions about people with foreign-sounding names or foreign qualifications are likely the reason behind their lower selection rates as compared to those with Anglo-Canadian-sounding names or Canadian qualifications. These incorrect biases are based on assumptions that people with foreign-sounding names do not speak English fluently, or that people with foreign qualifications are not as capable as those who have studied in Canada. Matthew's Anglo-Canadian-sounding name grants him certain privileges over Samir. Often when we talk about privilege, we think about white privilege, but several other kinds of privilege also exist, like socioeconomic status, sexuality, gender, and ability, among others, or even just a name. These forms of privilege give people access to resources and opportunities that others who do not share the same privilege are shut out of. Being biased or holding one or more kinds of privilege does not equate to being sexist, racist, transphobic, homophobic, ageist, or discriminatory in any other way. Each of us have our own privileges and our own biases, but we can each work to identify, acknowledge, and address these privileges and biases at the individual level to ensure that they do not negatively affect the way we treat others or perpetuate exclusionary workplaces and create disproportional opportunities that favor certain identities over others.